man has just visited the hills of Austria for the Austrian Grand Prix, so you all came the drill. I'm here with my thoughts of the weekend. First of all, track limits. Name a more iconic duel than the Red Bull Ring and track limits. I'll wait. There was only, 47 deleted lap times in qualifying, and a ton of time penalties and a ton of track limit infringements during the race. Small add-on, while I'm editing, the track limits thing has a lot more penalties have just popped up. So, all of the following penalties imposed after the race. Carlos Sainz, 10-second time penalty. Lewis Hamilton, 10-second time penalty. Pierre Gasly, 10-second time penalty. Alex Albon, 10-second time penalty. Esteban Ocon, a 5-second penalty, a 10-second penalty, a 5-second penalty, and a 10-second penalty. Logan Sargent, a 10-second penalty. Nick DeVries, a 10-second penalty and a 5-second penalty. And Yuki Tsunoda, a 5-second penalty. Jesus fucking Christ, guys. You couldn't stay in track limits. Apparently during the race, there were like 1,200 times they had to look, the FIA had to look at potential track limits, and they're also recommending gravel at turns 9 and 10, which I do agree with. I also just want to say a quick welcome to all the new folk who've come by and subscribed in recent days and weeks. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing. We're 25% of the way to 1K. Onwards and upwards. Just thank you. I just wanted to give a quick mention to that. And also just to mention, over the weekend there was also a horrific crash at Spa on Saturday morning in the Freca race that claimed the life of MP Motorsport driver Delano Vanthoff. He was just 18 years old. 18! Motorsport continues to remind us that it is a dangerous game. Condolences go out to his family, his friends, his team. It's horrible news. May Delano rest in peace. Home hero team Red Bull now, Sergio Perez. 4 races in a row, not in Q3. He has been in Q3 less times this year than Nico Hulkenberg, who drives a frickin' Haas. That is both really good for Hulk, but bad for Checo. All 3 of the guy's flyers in Q2 got deleted for track limits, twice at turn 9 and a third time at turn 10. Checo's he's a bit of a mystery right now, because this year it seems like he's either really good or a bit mid, and there's very little, if any, in between. Horner has dismissed any suggestions that Red Bull could look to replace Perez, and all I'll say is that he said that about Gasly in 2019. A few weeks before the Frenchman was replaced. He did pull in a good qualifying and race result in the sprint stuff, P2 in both of those sessions, but he was still finishing 21 seconds behind his teammate in the sprint. Admittedly, he was behind the Hulk for a while, but regardless. And then as for Verstappen, the guy's just unstoppable, isn't he? Wins by 21 seconds in a 24-lap sprint, dominates the main race, but his race leading streak has come to an end. Finally. Honestly, there ain't much else to say about Verstappen, really. He's just been so dominant recently, you don't really have ever much to say about him. He did a great drive for victory, measured, it's kind of like he's playing F1 on 0% AI. Checo did do a great comeback in the race to get that podium finish as well from P15, and given his recent form, or lack thereof at times, he needed to get a result like that. I mean, if he has any hopes of the championship still, which I can't imagine he'll have many, he would need to hope for a bit of unfortunate luck for his teammate and for him to get a few wins. But now on to Ferrari. They brought an upgrade package this weekend with updates to the floor area and also to the front wing. They did test these out at their filming day at Fiorano prior to the weekend, and there is a rumour that according to AMUS, some teams apparently weren't happy that Ferrari did that after having used the Barcelona tyre test to optimise the setup for their Barcelona upgrade they brought a couple races back at Barcelona. But Ferrari did nothing against the regulations, and they took advantage of what said regulations allowed you to do. So really, no problems in doing what they did. Just thought it was worth a mention. And no, I ain't talking about that grid drop penalty Leclerc got after sprint race qualifying for the sprint race. I don't feel like ranting about Ferrari communication today. I don't know how much to comment on in terms of the sprint events, other than it was nice to see Sainz getting that P3. He had a pretty good sprint. He had good pace and he got good points for himself and for the team. And that was some run from him in SQ1. Just 1 lap to do it right at the end. Nay prep, nay banker, boom, sticks at P1. Leclerc did seem to struggle a bit more in those conditions. There seems to be something about the car, or maybe the way he had it set up for those in those mixed halfway half dry conditions. Those conditions that doesn't suit him. He's struggling a bit more with him this year. He himself commented afterwards that this is the third weekend in a row that he's nowhere in those kind of halfway, half-dry conditions, and he needs to improve there. Maybe it was a setup thing, I don't know, but good thing for him is Saturday of a sprint weekend has no effect on Friday or Sunday, and Sunday was fully dry. And it was really nice on the Sunday to see Ferrari get back on the podium. Charles finishing P2. I'm sorry, Leclerc fan here, that was fucking brilliant. And that was Ferrari's 800th podium in F1. They have more than Mercedes, Red Bull and Williams combined, apparently. And Leclerc also remains the only non-Red Bull driver to have led a race this year. And apparently his run of leading today is the longest stint Ferrari have had in the lead since Monza last year. Ferrari did manage the race brilliantly, it has to be said. Good managing on both sides in terms of them not attacking each other and losing time, because that was the last thing they needed. Sainz, sure, probably a little bit peeved off to be finishing behind his teammate and being one of the drivers dinged for track limits. But that was some defending he did against Checo. That was brilliant to watch. That's the kind of like battling that we all love to see. It was great to see it. The Spanish Minister of Defense a little bit there, but he did lose out in the end. But he made Leclerc's life a hell of a lot easier than last 10 laps. But for real, I do have to throw some praise the way of Ferrari. This upgrade they brought to Austria, apparently, according to Vasseur, wasn't planned until Budapest. But they worked like hell, as worded by the Frenchman, to get them on the car 2 races sooner. And the upgrade seemed to be working well, with the car now apparently becoming more predictable again, and is feeling more like last year's car. So I really gotta hand it to Ferrari for working as hard as they've been working to make the improvements they need to make. They took a step forward in Canada, and that's kind of springboarded them into making another step forward here in Austria. Oh, and Ferrari, the fuck was going on here? I have questions. To Mercedes Nice, they had a horrible Saturday, didn't they? 15th and 18th to start the sprint after Verstappen decided to race Hamilton down to turn 1 after the Dutchman had finished his flying lap and the Brit was starting one. How Max didn't get a penalty for that, or why he decided to even do that, I'll never know. And Russell, with hydraulic issues, not able to set a time in SQ2. It's a good thing for the Brackley-based team that the Saturday on sprint weekends has no effect on Sundays, because my god. But mind you, it didn't get much better for them on Sunday. They were a lot worse in the race than I expected they would be. George was just quiet. I barely saw anything of George all afternoon. And Lewis had a 5-second penalty for track limits by lap 13. Sum up of his race. It was not their weekend. Perhaps that was to be expected given the long straights at Austria, and straight line speed hasn't exactly been the strong suit of Mercedes toward it one way. They haven't been the Mercedes engine isn't as good as its rivals' engines, but either way, was not Mercedes' weekend. They'll be hoping for better next time out at Silverstone. McLaren, meanwhile, were also bringing upgrades this weekend, but only on Lando Norris's car. Piastri will be getting them in the Silverstone this weekend, you would assume. And the upgrades containing new side pod inlets, a reshaped side pod and engine cover, updates to the halo, a fully revised floor, and updates to the cooling louvre, whatever that is. They also, on Friday, called in a right of review over that 5-second penalty Norris got in Canada, and lads, that was 12 weeks ago. What the fuck took you so long to do this? It came to nothing though, as expected. I will also mention, it may be easy to think that after seeing the great weekend McLaren had, that Hakkinen might have been onto something with them maybe able to challenge Red Bull by the end of the season, but keep in mind Norris is an Austria specialist. There is still no way that's happening. McLaren really did have a great weekend with Norris. He was mega in qualifying and in the race, finishing P5. He is a bit of a Red Bull ring specialist, but those upgrades do seem to be working for McLaren, so that's going to bode really well for them in their midfield battle with, I'm going to assume their battle seems to be with Alpine, as it was last season. We'll see how that one shapes out, but those upgrades are going to be good for them if they're working like that. At AlphaTauri, we had news that the team may not be called AlphaTauri next season, according to Helmut Marko. The return of Toro Rosso, maybe? Well, no, not according to outgoing team principal Franz Tost. Though a new name altogether, or sticking with AlphaTauri, as Franz Tost has suggested might possibly be a case. But Marko also said the other day that Christian Horner wasn't keen on signing Nick de Vries to AlphaTauri, and Marko was the only one vouching for the Dutchman to get that seat at the sister team, and Franz Tost had his eye on Mick Schumacher for the seat, but Marko had felt de Vries would be a better fit. But he's now admitting that Horner was right. Look, I've said it on this channel multiple times, De Vries is not having a very good season, and I will be honest, I will be surprised if he keeps his seat for next year. But Jesus, Red Bull, you're being a little bit rough. Just the Red Bull management openly admitting, yeah, we maybe made a mistake in signing him to AlphaTauri. That is rough. Down at Alpine, I gotta hand it to Ocon. He was defending like a lion in the sprint under a lot of pressure from first Leclerc, then Norris behind him. I got nothing else on Alpine, apart from that they were just pretty quiet. I mean, I suppose I'm not the only one who didn't really notice much of Alpine today though, given the fact that everyone had clearly missed Alpine so much, and especially Ocon so much, that they didn't see that he should have gotten 30 seconds worth of penalties. What racing lines was he taking? What was he doing that necessitated him getting 30 seconds worth of penalties after the frickin' race is finished? Aston Martin, they were also pretty quiet. They were a bit nowhere this weekend. As I'm recording this, they have protested the race results and trust the team that contains Alonso to be the one doing the bitching to the FIA. Although, mind you, seems like most of the teams were bitching to the FIA during the race for track limits, or rather most of the drivers were doing the bitching. Yet another magnificent qualifying from Alex Albon. I had a feeling he could go quite well at Austria given line straights, and the Williams seemed pretty slippery in a straight line, and he did go well. Up in Q3 in qualifying, it didn't work out for him in the race, but these things happen. And a round of applause for Hulkenberg. I mentioned before that he's made Q3 more times this year than Checo. And in the sprint qualifying, he was up qualifying P4 for it, on mediums against everyone else's softs. Round of applause. Mega effort from him. Not just in qualifying, but in the sprint as well. He put up a brilliant fight. It was great to see him running as high as he was running in the sprint. It's a shame he didn't finish there. It was P7, but it also didn't. It was better than the main race where he DNF'd. But he put in a great drive in the sprint. But then finally, all I'll ask about Alfa Romeo is what were they on when they decided to put Bottas on slicks right at the start of the sprint? Overall, I'd wager this was probably the best race of the season so far. We saw great battles and great racing, which Austria always provides us with, and we'll be seeing more of it for years to come as Austria is staying on the calendar until 2030 at least. But I really enjoyed that race. But what did you make of the Austrian Grand Prix? Let me know your thoughts, do it in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.